When the Sparrow Falls by Neil Sharpson, a book which may perhaps be pretty timely given the size of the shadow which artificial intelligence casts upon our world now. So, I don't really know all that much about Neil Sharpson. I'm not really familiar with this author. I just came across this book by chance in the bargain section of a bookstore. And I just picked it up because it looked cool, it sounded cool, and it was only a few bucks. And now that I've read this book, I have to say it is a pretty cool book, actually. It manages to be both quite entertaining, honestly, pretty thrilling, actually, but it also manages to raise some salient questions about such emergent technology as artificial intelligence and the effects that it stands to have upon the world. So, what is the story of When the Sparrow Falls then? Well, the book is set in like the 23rd century, and it takes place in this nation which is called the Caspian Republic. This country was founded to be like a haven for humanity because by this point in time, AI has pretty much taken over the world, not in a like Terminator type way, in a less violent, more nuanced sort of way. Like outside the borders of this one country, the Caspian Republic, the world is pretty much governed by AI. But beyond that, there are like sentient AIs, like sentient computer programs, which are capable of being transferred into like cloned human bodies. That's like the level of technological advancement we're dealing with here. So it makes it very difficult to know who is like a true quote unquote human and who is just like an AI in a human body. But as I said, this country, the Caspian Republic, was founded to be a refuge for like true humanity. And like their technological development is like capped at a certain level. Like there's no AI permitted in the country, and like they don't have smartphones and stuff like that. So it's kind of an intentionally backwards country, but one that was founded again to be a refuge for true humanity. But unfortunately, the country has not turned out to be quite the utopia which the founders had perhaps envisioned it to be. The Caspian Republic actually is very reminiscent. The book makes it pretty clear of like the Soviet Union. It's a very oppressive, very drab, very bureaucratic kind of hellhole. But that's like the setting for the story. The principal character and also the narrator of the book is a character named Nikolai South, who is an agent of the country's like state security agency. And it is revealed pretty early on in the book that this character, who has long been believed to be like one of the most outspoken opponents of the machine world outside the borders of the Caspian Republic, and who has recently been killed, was actually dun 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 one of the he was an AI who again had been like transferred into a human body, and so now the wife of this deceased individual who was like a writer uh is coming to the Caspian Republic to like to set the affairs in order of this person, or this AI, if you want to, make a distinction between person and computer program. And so Agent South is tasked with kind of like escorting and chaperoning this AI woman around the country as she like deals with the effects and affairs of her uh, deceased AI husband. But there's some twists and turns. This is like a thriller. It's like a political thriller, actually. There are some twists and turns. Some things happen. Agent South gets in a little too deep. He gets compromised by this AI lady, and he also has to grapple with some dark uh, things from his past, such as his wife's death, as well as some severe regrets that he has due to some atrocities which the agency of which he is a part has committed. And that's really all I want to say about the plot, because again, this is a very plot driven book. This is a thriller. Yeah, it's again specifically like a political thriller. There are lots of twists and turns. There are some reveals in here which have the potential to be kind of game changing, kind of shocking. So I don't want to like spoil the plot in this case, but I'll just say that's what the plot concerns. So let's talk about the technical qualities of the book, as well as some of the thematic concerns of the book. So first off, the writing. This is a pretty strongly written book. Neil Sharpson is a pretty good wordsmith. The voice with which this book is told is pretty strong. It's well worded. There are some really nice flourishes in here. So all in all, I don't really have anything to complain about with the writing. I think it was a pretty strongly written book overall. So now on to the characters. Again, this is a first person book. Although at the end of this book, as I said, the reason why I don't really want to spoil it is because by the end, that kind of changes. Like it's well, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but the book is told in one voice through the eyes of this one character. But then by the end, the nature of this narrative is changed. Our perspective on these events is changed, and our perspective on who is actually telling them has been changed. And it's a pretty good twist, honestly. I'll say that. So again, I'm not going to spoil it, but the main character, Nikolai South, is a pretty good character, and the secondary characters do have some life in them, like his superior, the woman that he answers to. She is pretty memorable, as well as the woman whom he is like escorting around, this AI in a human body, has some real personality. But being, again, as this is a first person book, the main focus here is in our narrator character, and he is a pretty well written character. He has some serious baggage. There were a lot of regrets that he has had because of the way that things ended with the way that things ended as regards his marriage to his wife, and she died. But there were also some some things going on there that he regrets, and also there are some sordid things that he took part in his past, which he can't really live down. Again, very kind of like Soviet Union type mass execution type stuff. But it all comes to pretty good effect in this character, because we see a person who is serving a nation which is like which was created to be like a refuge for humanity. But we also are confronted with the fact that humanity is kind of shit, actually. And so his like the walls that he has thrown up between himself and the machine world, which would keep him like at an emotional distance from this AI woman whom he is in very close contact with, start to crumble, and we see him begin to be kind of compromised, and we see his like worldview start to change. It's a pretty good journey, actually. It's pretty well done. And it will get you invested, I think, or it got me invested anyway. So the characters are pretty good, I would say, or at least the principal one is in this case. Now on to like the story, and moreover what the story concerns. So this is, like I said, a thriller, and it's a pretty good thriller, actually. There is a lot of intrigue going on here. There are a lot of twists and turns. There are a lot of reveals that are given as the book goes on, which changes our perspective on these events. It's really, and it's well plotted too. Like it moves pretty well, but it also manages to get in some like pontificating a little bit, again, because as with the best science fiction, it is also kind of a novel of ideas, and again, in this case, very pertinent ideas, given that AI casts such a shadow over our world today. Now, you know, my perspective on AI, as AI in the context of like this type of sci-fi, I'm a little skeptical. Like the notion of machines gaining like human level consciousness, like sentience, I'm actually a little skeptical now as to whether that's actually truly feasible. And also the notion of like sentient computer programs being transferred into a human brain, that also is pretty far out. I guess they say never. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that I know that to be an impossibility, but I'm going to say that's something that I'm rather dubious towards. It makes for good sci-fi, um, but I'm not convinced that this is actually possible. But more than just that, the world that this book takes place in, I'm also a little bit skeptical towards, because, like, one of the biggest questions that a lot of people kind of have posed as regards the potential of AI is whether or not AI can really make like a planned economy work, because that is like the world that this book takes place in, that is outside the borders of this one country, the Caspian Republic. The rest of the world is like governed by AI. Like the economy is pretty much run by AI. Like AI predicts all these things about like economic affairs, consumer habits, the stock market, and stuff like that. And so like the economy is effectively planned by AI. So like the big question, I suppose, of AI is like, can artificial intelligence make like socialism work? I mean, like true, genuine, like old school socialism, as in like a planned economy. Can artificial intelligence make that feasible? I don't think so myself. In order to plan an economy, you would have to have truly godlike knowledge. Like you would have to have knowledge of the inner workings of the hearts and minds of men, because that is what makes an economy go. And so like the notion of these like super powered artificial intelligences predicting like changes in the stock market well in advance, predicting like these, the movements of society, and predicting what people are going to want and how much of it. I just don't really think that's feasible. And like the author of this book, obviously, apparently, takes a different approach, where he apparently subscribes to the belief that artificial intelligence of a sufficient caliber would be able to like run the world, run the economy, um, more efficiently than like a human market economy. To me, that's just that very idea is like a recipe for disaster. But it is a thoughtful book still, even if I'm inclined to disagree with some of its conclusions. It does get points because it's at least like entertaining these questions. But the big thing that really got me about this book is the notion, like the perspective that this book has on artificial intelligence and its ultimate potential. In particular, it relates to Rocco's basilisk. If you are familiar with that kind of internet, I guess it's like a thought experiment. If you're not familiar with Rocco's basilisk, you need to like look into that, because I don't want to recap the whole thing here. But this book deals with that, and like it posits the idea that uh, eventually artificial intelligence will reach like a point of such like pretty much omniscience, I guess like a true singularity, that it will, for all intents and purposes, like become God. And that this future like AI God is retrocausally influencing the course of events to bring itself about. And so, like, the main character, Agent South, comes to believe that like this chain of events that he is caught in is ultimately orchestrated by a quote unquote higher power, in that it's all leading towards, again, I guess, like the singularity, the omega point or something like that, of this like godlike AI uh, machine thing. And that was really cool. Now, I would say I just said a minute ago that I'm skeptical as to the actual uh, potential for artificial intelligence when it comes to like sentience. But discounting that, I do find that notion actually very thought provoking. I thought that was a really neat little idea, and I liked how it tied into a real world concept that we have like now, which is again Rocco's basilisk. That was really neat. I liked that. So overall, this is a pretty cool book, actually. Um, to rate When the Sparrow Falls, I think I'm going to give this a B plus. Actually, it's a pretty cool book. It's very entertaining. It'll keep you turning pages like the best page turners will. But it also has something under the hood. It's also a thoughtful book, grappling with an issue which is, again, very pertinent to our world today. So yeah, for me, I'm going to give it a B plus. I think the only reason why it doesn't get higher than that is because, again, I don't want to spoil the plot. There's a point after, I guess, what you'd call the climax of the plot where it kind of jumps ahead, and there are some events that it kind of inserts this like revolution where the Caspian Republic falls, which is not really hinted at all prior to that point in the book. And so that kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. Like it gives this denouement to this entire nation, but it kind of just comes out of nowhere a little bit. And so it felt a little jarring at points, or at least at that point in the book, as when it comes to how it progressed its story. But minor quibble, really. Overall, this is a pretty cool book, and I could recommend it if you are interested in AI and its potential effects on the world, and whether you are, interested in that kind of sci-fi question of, can a machine have a soul? Can there be a ghost in the machine? It's a ponderous book in a way, but it's also fast paced and, like I say, quite entertaining. So overall, a pretty good book, and I'll give it a B plus. So, When the Sparrow Falls by Neil Sharpson. Have you read this book? If you have, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it. If you haven't read this book, well, like I said, if you're interested in this kind of thing, definitely pick it up, because I would say it's worth a read. It's a quality work. And as always, if you have enjoyed anything you've seen or heard here today, remember to hit that like button and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And until next time, peace.